There is this moment happening right now, and you probably don't even realize how many people are watching, how many conversations are happening about you in coffee shops and grocery stores, parking lots, and group chats you will never see. Someone saw what you did. Someone heard what you said, and it hit differently because you broke something that everyone else was pretending was permanent. You said the quiet part out loud, or you did something nobody expected from you, and suddenly the whole narrative shifted. The script everyone was following doesn't work anymore. And when someone actually stood up and showed them what honest looks like, what courage looks like, what real conversation sounds like when it's not filtered through fear, you understand something that most people spend their entire lives avoiding, that there is a side of you that the world has never seen. Not the dark side, not the broken side, but the real side. The side that has opinions that might make people uncomfortable. The side that wants things that don't fit neatly into the boxes society prepared for you. The side that sees through the performance everyone else is maintaining and cannot pretend anymore. It's like you've been the moon showing the world only your illuminated face, the safe face, the predictable face, and everything else, the vast, complex, powerful reality of who you actually are. That's been hidden on the dark side, invisible, unknown, unexpected, unexpressed. But here's what happens when someone finally stops performing just the light side and lets the whole moon be visible. The whole world has to recalibrate. They have to look at you differently. They have to acknowledge that you were always more than what they thought they knew. You woke up one morning. Maybe nothing felt different on the surface, but something inside you had changed. You'd been watching people around you accept things that didn't make sense, play alone with stories that were slowly crushing the actual aliveness out of their days. You'd been doing it too, playing the part, keeping the peace, being the person everyone needed you to be rather than the person you actually were. But something shifted and you couldn't unsee it. You couldn't go back to pretending that settling was the same as accepting, that compromise was the same as integrity. The quiet suffering was the same as being thoughtful. Something in you just woke up. And when you woke up, you could not help yourself. You had to say something. You had to do something, even though saying it and doing it meant stepping outside the comfort zone, meant risking the approval of people who were invested in you staying exactly as you were. Think about Joan of Arc for a second. Most people know the story, the teenage girl from a small French village who had a vision, who heard something calling to her that nobody else could hear, who suddenly stood up in the middle of war and said, I'm going to change everything. I'm going to do what everyone else is too afraid to do. And here is what's wild. The whole kingdom, the entire establishment, all the powerful people who were invested in things staying exactly as they were, they couldn't ignore her. They could not silence her by just dismissing her, because she was showing them something they couldn't unsee. She was showing them that the faith was real. That conviction was possible, that a single person acting from absolute truth could actually shift the entire direction of history. The whole country ended up talking about her, not because she was shouting the loudest, but because what she was showing them was so rare, so genuine, so unlike anything they'd ever experienced before. They couldn't stop analyzing it, debating it, trying to understand how someone so young, so ordinary, could suddenly become someone so undeniable. She showed them that the impossible was actually possible. She revealed that you didn't need permission from the system to change the system. You just needed to actually believe in something more than you believed in your own fear. And here is what nobody expected. It actually worked. It actually resonated. Because people have been waiting for someone to say this. They've been silently hoping that someone brave enough would just speak the truth out loud without wrapping it in apologies or softening it with explanations. They've been watching other people play it safe, and they have been asking themselves why everyone's so afraid. What's the worst thing that could actually happen if you just decided to be real? If you decided that your integrity mattered more than someone's temporary discomfort? If you decided that your voice was worth using even if it made people nervous? You made that decision. And the whole town noticed. City, town, country. They are talking about it because something shifted in the air the moment you did. You stopped being just the safe, illuminated side of the moon that everyone expected. You showed them the rest of you. And suddenly the moon isn't a predictable, half-visible thing anymore. It becomes this complete, complex, powerful body in space that can affect the tides, that can change how light hits the earth, that commands attention not because it's trying to, but because it finally decided to stop hiding what's actually there. That dark side of the moon isn't actually dark. It's just been invisible. It's been denied. It's been the part of reality that the system couldn't control because the system couldn't see. But when you revealed it, when you let people see there is so much more to you than this carefully curated version they have been allowed to witness, something changed in how they perceive everything. They cannot go back to thinking of you as one-dimensional. They cannot pretend you don't have depth. conviction, edges, power. You showed them the whole thing, and now the whole conversation has shifted. This is the strange part that most people never understand. When you actually step into your own power, when you actually claim your own voice and stop apologizing for it, other people feel that. Yeah, other people feel that. It's like you activated something in the room that was there all along but dormant. You showed them that it was possible. You showed them that you could actually do the thing everyone else was too afraid to do. And the world didn't end. You didn't get destroyed. If anything, you became more visible, more interesting, more real, more necessary. The conversations about you are not happening because you did something shocking or outrageous. They are happening because you did something authentic. Yes, something authentic. You showed up as yourself in a world that's obsessed with performance, and people cannot stop talking about it because it's so rare that they don't have a framework for it. Their normal categories don't apply to someone who's actually being genuine. It's like you've created gravity just by being fully yourself. The dark side of the moon doesn't apologize for existing, doesn't try to convince you it deserves to be there. It just rotates into view, and suddenly the entire orbit changes. Everything that was calculating distance from the light side now has to account for the fact that there is mass, there is substance, there is reality on that other side too. And that changes everything. The tides shift, the light reflects differently. The whole system has to recalibrate. You did that. You created a gravitational shift in your environment just by deciding to show up completely, just by refusing to hide anymore, just by letting people see the full reality of who you are, not just the acceptable parts, but the whole person, the whole moon. And they cannot stop orbiting around that because authenticity has a pull that performance never had. Think about what you've actually witnessed in your own life. You've seen people succeed by being palatable, by being exactly what everyone wanted them to be, by never making anyone uncomfortable. And you have seen them feel empty. You've seen them look in the mirror and not recognize themselves. You've seen them gain everything the system promised and still feel like something critical, crucial was missing. And you have also seen people take different paths, messier paths, less certain paths, paths that meant disappointing some people. And those people, they seem different. They seem like they are actually living instead of just existing, living their life. They seem like they have permission to be themselves, and that permission changes everything. You decided you wanted that. You decided that your peace mattered more than someone else's approval. And when you made that decision, visible through your actions, through your words, through the way you started showing up differently, People could not help but notice. What's happening right now in your life is bigger than just one moment or one action. It's a shift. It's you stepping into something that's been building underneath the surface for a long time. You've been preparing for this without even knowing it. Every time you beat your tongue and felt that ache in your chest, that was teaching you something about what you actually believe in. Every time you made yourself smaller to fit into someone else's version of who you should be, that was showing you exactly what you didn't want anyone anymore. Every time you stayed quiet when you had something to say, that was creating pressure inside you that had to release eventually. And when it released, it came out as something real, something powerful, something that people recognize immediately because they have been starving for it. The people around you are reacting in different ways because your shift threatens their narrative. Some people are excited because they are recognizing themselves in your courage. They are seeing what becomes possible when someone actually decides to trust themselves. They are thinking about their own situations, their own silenced voice, their own compromises, and they are wondering if maybe they could do this too. They are wondering if maybe they could become the version of themselves that they have never been, that they have been too afraid to become. Other people are threatened because your authenticity makes their inauthenticity more visible. When you stop playing the game, you expose the game for what it is. You show them that staying small wasn't required. It was a choice. And that's uncomfortable because it means they have been making the choice too. And they don't want to admit that. So they talk about you. They dissect you. They dissect what you said, what you did, how you could possibly have the confidence to show up that way. And in all that talking, you are becoming more visible, more real, more impossible to ignore. There is this psychological thing that happens when someone steps into their own power in front of you. You cannot unsee it. You can't pretend it doesn't exist anymore. Before you did this, everyone could maintain the comfortable fiction that this was just how things were. This was the way life worked. You were supposed to be small, supposed to be accommodating, supposed to prioritize other people's feelings over your own integrity. But you showed them differently. You showed them that it was possible to have both, to be kind and to be honest, to be thoughtful and to be bold, to be genuine and to be successful. You proved that the supposed trade-off wasn't actually real. And now they can't unsee it. The whole town's talking about it because somewhere deep down, that's what they have been waiting to hear. That's what they have been hoping someone would show them was possible. Here is what I want you to understand about this moment, about what's actually happening right now in your life and in the conversations surrounding you. This isn't accidental, this isn't random. You didn't trip into this. Something inside you recognized something and you responded to it. You felt that pull toward authenticity, toward truth, toward showing up as yourself. And you followed it, even though you couldn't guarantee the outcome. That kind of trust in yourself, that kind of willingness to move forward when feels true, even what feels true, even when you can't see the whole path. That's rare. That's powerful. That's what changes things. Not big dramatic actions necessarily, but genuine ones. Actions that come from alignment rather than fear, from conviction rather than desperation, from clarity rather than confusion. And the authenticity and the attention you are getting isn't punishment for stepping out of line. It's recognition. It's people noticing that something shifted, that something changed, that you changed. And they are trying to understand what that means for them. Because if it's possible for you, maybe it's possible for them too. Maybe they don't have to keep accepting what they have been accepting. Maybe they don't have to keep performing their way through life. Maybe there is another option that they have been too afraid to consider. Your visibility right now, all that talking, all those conversations, they are actual evidence that you struck a nerve. You said something that people needed to hear. You did something that people needed to see. You demonstrated something that people have been desperate to believe was possible. Think about what comes next. This is the part where most people get confused because they expect their attention to disappear once the initial moment passes. They expect to go back to normal, to go back to being invisible, to go back to playing their part in the established system. But that's not what happens when you have actually activated something real. The attention might shift, might change form, might become less obvious, but it doesn't disappear. What happens is that you have to decide what you're actually going to do with this. You have to decide whether this was an one-time thing, a moment of courage that you are proud of, or whether this is the beginning of something different. Whether this is your final claiming your own voice and committing to using it, or whether this is you testing the waters before you retreat back into safety. And here is the thing that everyone who's successful stepped into their own power understands. Retreating back into safety after you've tasted authenticity is actually harder than moving forward, because you can't unfeel what you felt. You can't unknown what you know about yourself, especially. You can't pretend anymore that you don't have something to say, that you don't have something to contribute, that you are not worth listening to. The pressure that was building inside you, that's not going away. It might compress for a while, might get quieter, might seem like it's gone, but it's still there. And eventually it has to release again, because you cannot hold yourself smaller than you actually are forever. You cannot deny yourself forever. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. You will feel it in your chest. You will feel it in your throat. You will feel it in every interaction where you are tempted to make yourself smaller. And you will know that you tried it and it didn't bring you peace. Only authenticity brings peace. Once you've shown the whole moon, you cannot pretend to be a crescent again. You cannot convince yourself that half visibility was ever actual safety. You've tasted what it feels like to be completely yourself. And that knowledge changes your nervous system. You cannot unknown it. You cannot unsee it. And every time you try to go back to hiding, you will feel that resistance inside you. That's not punishment. That's your own authentic self refusing to be compressed anymore. Joan of Arc couldn't have stepped back into being a peasant girl after she'd experienced what it felt like to move from complete invisibility into world-changing visibility. She couldn't pretend she hadn't heard the call. She couldn't unsee what she'd seen. And you are experiencing something similar right now. You are stepping into visibility. You've shown people who you actually are. And the whole town is talking about it. Because something fundamental has shifted. You can't go back to being the version of yourself that nobody noticed. The genie is out of the bottle. The moon is showing both sides now. And that changes the entire gravitational field. Yeah, the revolution that you started. And yeah, that's what this is. Even if it started small. It started the moment you decided that your integrity mattered. It started the moment you chose truth over comfort. Over comfort, authenticity, over approval, alignment over acceptance. And right now, people are watching to see what you are going to do next. And you are going to consolidate this. Are you going to use this visibility, this attention, this recognition to move further into yourself rather than retreat back into the safe version? Because the whole town might be talking about what you said and did, but what they are really trying to figure out is whether you meant it, whether you are serious about this shift, whether you are actually going to become this person you've shown them you could be, or whether this was just a moment. And here's what I know about you in this moment. You are standing at a threshold. On one side is the familiar path, the safe path, the path where you keep playing your part and accept that this moment was just a temporary exception to the rule. And on the other side of this path, where you actually commit to this, where you decide that showing up authentically isn't a special occasion, it's your baseline, where you decide that Your voice is worth using not just when you feel brave, but as your normal way of operating, where you decide that the version of you who got up that morning and said the quiet part out loud, the version who did something real and unexpected, that version is who you actually are, not the version who was performing before. The attention you are getting right now is actually a gift. It's a confirmation. It's the world showing you that what you did matter, that your voice resonates, that your authenticity has power. But it also a test, kind of. Is the universe asking you whether you trust yourself enough to keep going, whether you are going to honor what you studied, or whether you are going to let fear pull you back. And the beautiful part, the part that most people never realize, is that you have already shown yourself what you are capable of. You have already proven to yourself that you can do the hard thing. You've already demonstrated to the people around you, that authenticity is worth the risk. You cannot undo that. You can try to, but you cannot actually go back to being someone who doesn't know what you now know. So the conversations about you, the fact that the whole town is talking about what you said and did, that's not pressure. That's actually freedom. Yeah, freedom. That's the world around you acknowledging that something shifted, that you shifted, that you are not the same person you were before this moment. And everyone can feel it. They are talking about it because they are trying to understand what changed. What gave you the courage? What made you decide that authenticity mattered more than fitting in? And every time they have that conversation, every time they ask themselves what you saw that they haven't seen yet, every time they wonder if maybe they could do what you did, they are moving themselves closer to their own authenticity. You started something. You started a revolution. Maybe it looks quiet from the outside. Maybe it doesn't look like what you imagined a revolution would look like. But revolutions always start with individuals deciding that the old rules no longer apply to them, that the game isn't worth playing anymore, that they are going to take the risk of being themselves and see what happens. What happens next is your choice. You can let this moment fade into just a story about that time you were brave, or you can let this moment be the beginning of a completely different chapter where being brave becomes your normal state, where authenticity becomes your baseline instead of the exception, where you stop asking for permission to be yourself and just start being yourself as your default. The whole town is talking about you right now because you gave them something to talk about. But more importantly, you gave yourself something to know about yourself. You know now that you can do this. You know that you are capable of stepping outside the system and showing up as yourself. You know that people can handle your authenticity, that they actually respond to it, that it changes something in the air when you're real. That knowledge, that proof that's yours now, and that changes everything.